So it occurred to me that I gave quite a lot of theory in my deep dive videos about 3 notes per string scales, but I didn't really give that many practical exercises that you can use to learn these shapes, to get these shapes under your fingers. So that's what I thought I'd do this week. So if you want to know how to train yourself so you can put your hand anywhere on the neck, choose any note as a root note and be able to build the major 3 notes per string or the minor 3 notes per string scale from that note or any other note on the neck, then you should be able to do that using this video. Now, as I say, I'm going to be drawing on the information that I gave in the previous 2 videos about the deep dive into the 3 notes per string scale shapes, so if you've not seen those, it might be worth you checking those out as well. But fundamentally, all I do in those videos is introduce 3 scale fragments, and I show how every 3 notes per string major and minor position can be thought of as being comprised of these three scale fragments. And what I did was I showed that the first scale fragment is this. So that's 3 strings and each of the 3 notes is a tone apart. And the other crucial piece of information is in that second string, the note that my index finger is playing is the root note of the major scale. So if I play that fragment, whatever note my index finger is playing would be the root note of the major scale. So there I'm playing E flat and I'm playing all the notes out of the E flat major scale. Similarly, the second fragment looks like this. It's just 2 strings this time, but it's a semitone, tone, semitone, tone. And in this fragment, the root note of the major scale is where my second finger is playing on that lower string. So as my second finger's on a C, then I know I'm playing a C major, for example. And the final fragment is this. 2 strings, which is a tone and a semitone, tone, semitone. And again, the important note to think about is that third note, which my little finger's playing. And as that's a D, I'm playing notes out of the D major scale. And so, if all of this seems weird or you don't quite understand it, go and check out those 2 other videos on the deep dive into 3 notes per string, and I'll break it down into much more detail in those. But all we're going to do now is zoom in, and I'll give you a quick exercise, something that you can just do. If you do it every day for a week or so, you'll find that you can just build these scale shapes anywhere on the neck. So have a go. Okay, so all we're going to do is work our way across the strings, and we're going to do it like this. So just put your hand anywhere, pick a fret. So where am I? I'm on a B note, 7th fret on the E string, and we're going to play B major. So as my index finger is on that first note, I know that should be the middle string of the first fragment. And then move on to the second fragment, then move on to the third fragment. And that's all we do, we just try and build the shape up. Let's try there. So now my second finger is on the C, so let's see if we can play that. So I know, as it's my second finger, I should use the second fragment, the lowest string, then move on to the third fragment, and then loop around to the first fragment. And overshoot the other way as well, play below the root note, just so you learn the full shape below as well as above. And then we do the same thing with the third note. Little finger, so it's on a D, so I'll use the third fragment and then loop around to the first and then the second fragment and then overshoot and back up again, and then we do exactly the same thing on the A string. So first fragment, second fragment, third fragment. And overshoot the other way, and and then try the next note. So it's second finger, so I'm using the second fragment, third fragment, first fragment. And then, so just keep doing this. Little finger, second string, so that must be third fragment. Loop around to first fragment. And so as you can see, I'm just making my way from string to string to string, ascending up the scale, playing all the way back down, and then back to my root note again. And then once I reach the high note, I work my way back across again, so I start with a descending line. So as it's my little finger, it's the third fragment, then loops around to the second fragment, loop, and to the first fragment. Hopefully you can see how that works, and I just work my way all the way back across again. So what about the minor? Well, the minor, if you're playing the natural minor, not the melodic or the harmonic minor, but the natural minor has all the same notes as the major scale, as I talked about in another previous video as well. So we can use the same fragments to build minor scales as we can the major scale. All we do is we work out where the root note is. And for the minor scale, you use a different root note. So if you want the root to fall on your index finger, use the third fragment, and the lowest string of that third fragment is the root note of the minor scale. So I'm playing in B minor as my index finger is playing a B. If I play the third fragment, then I'm playing B minor. Similarly, the second note, the second finger, wherever the second finger falls, if you play the lower string of the first fragment, which is 3 notes, you'll play the minor scale based on wherever that second finger falls on the lowest string. So here it's fallen on a C, so I'm playing C minor. And finally, the third fragment, the little finger, wherever the little finger falls, if you want to make that the root note, the minor root, you put the little finger at the very highest note of the third string on the first fragment. So where I'm playing there, I'm playing C again, so that's C minor. And obviously you can then, just like before, you can move from the first fragment to the second to the third fragment, and they cycle round just like they do for the major scale. So let's zoom in and I'll show you that as well. Okay, so with the minor, I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. So I just put my hand anywhere on the neck. Index finger on the low string, it's on the B on the 7th fret again. So I know if it's my index finger, I start with the third fragment, first string, and then loop around to first fragment, then to second fragment. And then next note. Okay, so it's a middle finger, so it must be the lowest string of the first fragment, middle note, then second fragment, then third fragment. Yeah. Third finger, so I know this is the very top of the first fragment, so I move on to the second fragment. Then third fragment, then first fragment. There we go. And again, I just work my way all the way across the strings and all the way back down again. So that's it. There should be plenty of material there for you to work on. Give it a week or so and you'll find that you'll be able to play the major or the minor scale with a root anywhere on the neck. Now the next stage really is to be able to start with any interval, not just the root note, but be able to put the second or the third or the fourth anywhere and be able to build the major scale around that pitch as well. And we'll talk about that in a future video. But hopefully this was useful for you, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.